Okay, if you're watching this now, my name is Stallone-Obaraemi Samuel, and this is the Positive Alteration School. Basically, what we're here to do is to gather experiences of people who have been in different walks of life and see how those experiences can inspire us, inspire people to become better. Our focus at this time is around public speaking and communication. So today on the show, we have Ronnie Smith. Just to give you a background, Ronnie Smith is a health, wellness, and fitness professional. You need to see him, he's really, really fit. And then he also is a super talented guitarist. I'm sure he didn't know that I had to find that out. He's a super talented guitarist, a songwriter, and a singer. And I must also say that Rooney is the president, as we speak, of one of the most outstanding public speaking associations in the United Kingdom. So, Rooney, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Stallone, and it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Rooney. So, Rooney, for the sake of our audience, can you share a bit about your background and how you got started in your field of wellness and fitness? I know that you are really interested. You talk about you're really concerned about wellness and fitness. How did you get started?
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I had all sorts of ideas of different things I wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to be an illustrator, drawing the pictures in books. I like that idea. I like the idea of being a footballer or snooker player, some kind of sports person. That those things didn't happen. There was a time I wanted to be a pilot, but actually, music was a big passion for me when I was younger, and I met someone quite early on when I was playing music, and he was a friend of mine. And at that age, when you're maybe 16 years old, 15 years old, a lot of people are starting to drink alcohol, started to take drugs, started to go down an unhealthier path of life. But he said to me, he thought it was a, a dumb idea to drink alcohol, right? And I was inspired by that. I thought, yeah, I want to focus on the things I want to achieve in life. And I think unhealthy choices will take me in the wrong direction. So from quite a young age, I stayed away from things like alcohol, from cigarettes. I started to slowly make improvements in my diet. I added more water to my diet and things like that. But even early on, I felt like something was missing. I didn't feel I had the energy I wanted. A lot of people, they say when they were younger, they were unstoppable, they were invincible. I never felt like that when I was younger. I felt fatigued a lot of the time. I felt like there was, something a little bit missing. So I was always looking to make improvements, and I realized it was had to come from within. It wasn't something out there I had to get. It was something I needed to change. So eventually I started to play around with diet and started to try different diets and little experiments. And that was just the start of that journey of becoming interested in the connection between diet and how I felt. And I realized that as I improved my diet, I felt better, my body performed better, my mind was different, I felt happier, and I just saw the connection. And gradually over the years, I started to continue to experiment, to improve, to make changes, and become more experienced in that. Um, and I ended up going to an event to learn more about the concept of a raw food diet, a raw vegan diet, which was something I'd heard about and I got interested in from YouTube and people I was watching online. And there was a big gathering of people in upstate New York in America, and I made the decision to go to that, and I had a fantastic time, and I really felt for the first time I really fit in with these people because living in Glasgow, people socialize by drinking, by drugs, smoking, whatever, junk food, and I just felt like a real connection with that tribe, that community, and I developed a passion as I went home to try and bring that to where I lived, you know, and that gradually led me to start my own event, which developed into a larger festival. And that's been something I've been working on for about 10 or 11 years. And I'd like to say that I'm a fairly entrepreneurial person. At the same time, I liked, you know, I didn't thrive that well in normal jobs and whatever corporate life or the things I was finding. I wasn't uh, finding my way there, and I turned gradually towards more kind of entrepreneurship. I wouldn't say I'm a naturally talented businessman or anything like that, but my entrepreneurial um, kind of inclination has led me to learn a lot of the skills that are required for developing a business and running a business. And that's allowed me a lot of freedom and also confidence to create things and build different things in my life. But in order to do all that, I realized I had to develop skills that I didn't naturally have. So public speaking was something I identified I will need to develop that. And I wanted to develop that because I saw effective speakers and I was very impressed. I realized I would have to be speaking more, especially for my own event. And I also uh, realized I would have to learn skills of promotion, marketing, sales, organizing resources, accounting. So there's so many things to learn. And that's all come together with where I'm at now. And I would say that probably 10, 11 years into my journey of running the festival, I'm really still getting started with what I'm trying to figure out how to do. But I still have a passion for sharing, as you're saying, health and wellness with others. And I'm keen to continue to move forward with that. So hopefully that's a relatively straightforward introduction.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. It has also provided some insight for me. I thought I knew you, but you never know a person completely. You keep learning about the person. Remember, when you talk about entrepreneurship, let me veer a little bit. I remember a couple of nights ago, I think I was having this conversation, and I said, the challenge, I don't know how that dropped in my head, but I said that the challenge many people have is that they do not know how to get confused. And I was actually talking to my wife, and my wife said, really, what does that mean? And I said, people tend to want to give you a lot of so many forms of advice here and there. Sometimes when you make a mistake as a business person or an entrepreneur or someone who's trying to create something, the world wants to nail you. The world just wants to do away with you.
Yes.
But here's my argument is that you don't have the right to talk to me when I make a mistake because I'm trying to do something when you have never been confused. And confusion, my argument would be confusion comes when you're trying to do something that at the moment is way beyond your understanding and you are thinking, how do I get this done? If you've always been in a space where people tell you what to do, how to do it, how to get the result, and then you just go and do it perfunctorily, you cannot compare yourself to the other man who does the thinking, who does the building from the beginning. And what inspired me to say this, because you said 11 years down the line into your festival, you're still learning, trying to figure out how to do things, you see, and see all the skills that you have said, accounting, bookkeeping, public speaking, selling, all of that. The life of an entrepreneur, fascinating, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, I see it as incredible training. If anyone starts a business of any kind and if they pursue it properly, then you will learn all these skills and develop things. And you also, as you were saying, you will deal with a lot of negativity. There's a lot of an emotional side to it because most people in their working life they they don't realize it, but there is something there that they can always go to, something there that gives them a plan. Their work, their boss, their industry provides the plan, provides the model to follow, provides the schedule, the place, the location, the resources, everything, you know. When you're an entrepreneur or a leader of any type, and when I say entrepreneur, I don't just mean people that have businesses. I mean people that create things um, for their own. So someone that maybe starts a public speaking club, or someone that starts a tennis club, or whatever. You know, these are all entrepreneurial activities. I think to some level or another, um, and so uh, you have to develop. You naturally will develop lots of skills, and you have to develop these skills. But the you don't have a plan to follow. You don't have someone to get you up and do it. You don't have someone to make you commit to it. You know, you're there kind of on your own a lot, or you feel like you're on your own. You mentioned being confused. Like, if you think about it, there are so many paths to follow. How do you know which one to follow? How do
Yeah,
you which way to go? So it's so easy to continually, when you're in entrepreneurial activities, to continually be pushed into a place of confusion, of
sure.
not sure which way to go. And you just have to get used to that, and become good at being a leader of yourself. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, is leadership starts with leading yourself and knowing how to, and that's what I've had to do. One of the other skills is just learning how to be productive, learning how to get the best out of myself has been a big part of this journey for me.
Mm.
So I, it's a tough thing, but it's an emotional thing. And you said something about people pushing against you, or it's a fascinating thing about life. But when you put anything out there into the world, when you advertise, when you share with people a message, something you're going to do, you will get a lot of negativity back. Almost like that's the first and most obvious thing that happens. And for
Mm.
most people, that is a stage where they will not go any further forward. And so
Absolutely.
you do really need to have a set goal, a plan, you know, and the passion to push through and achieve the outcome. It's um it's a tough thing.
Yeah. Okay, Rooney, you mentioned a couple of skills you've mentioned you had to gather, and that you mentioned public speaking, selling, promotion. I want to ask you, can you tell our audience about a significant milestone or turning point in your career where you have found public speaking helpful in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say, Stallone, that I kind of always had the confidence to go up and speak. So I knew that I could, if I had to go up and speak, I could go up and do it. I could put myself in that difficult situation. I could go up and and make that speech if I had to. I wasn't necessarily very effective at it, but
Mm.
I could push myself to do it. When I was younger, we had English class in school, and we had to give a talk, and the teacher had said we're going to start doing the talks on Thursday, you know. So Wednesday night, I was not very prepared for my talk, but I sort of knew that there would only be a few people would give their talk that day out of a class of 30. So I thought it's probably not going to be me. So I didn't
Mm.
fully prepare. Well, the next day came, and I think I was one of the first people chosen. So I was pushed up to give a talk, and I gave the talk in front of my class, and but you know, and the people liked it actually. Actually, I got a good feedback, mostly probably because I had an interesting subject, which was the musician Jimi Hendrix. Right, so
Okay.
that was my subject. I was a fan of Jimi Hendrix, and so it wasn't that difficult for me to speak about. I'd watched a documentary the night before. I was trying to remember the documentary basically, but there was a big pause. There was a moment where there was a huge pause. I was looking out the window. I didn't know what to do, you know. But from that age, I could push myself up and speak. You know, I could do it. But it's for me, it's about the effectiveness of it. And I think that it's the combination of speaking and leadership that I find so wrapped up together. Public speaking and leadership are very tied in. At my own festival, at my own events, that's the main thing, especially from Toastmasters, well, my Toastmasters experience, my public speaking learning, is that people, because of what I've learned and how to communicate, in how to organize, in how to schedule, because of all of that, people give me such good feedback, I think, about feeling safe, about feeling that they were taken care of, about feeling that they're part of something. And with my event, I've had a lady, there's a bigger event, the one I went to in America is a bigger event with more money and stuff. And a lady that's come to has been to both events. She was at the one in America and I was there with her. And at that event, she came up to me and said, "Your festival puts this one to shame." And I was surprised by that. I was surprised, but I believe a lot of it was that I act as a leader at the event. I offer leadership, is the way I would put it. So I'm up there to speak at the start, to speak at the end, introducing things during the event, emceeing different things. So I'm very active in that, and it's the combination of the speaking and the leadership skills that I think allows me to bring people together, make them feel comfortable, make them feel safe, make them feel happy to be there. And I think that is the main. I'm struggling. I'm not sure if there's a one moment that I would say it all came together, but I've had many moments like that where I felt like the skills that I developed have been so useful and necessary and important for me. And I I think that it's and now helping others. You know, I've had that's the other thing is that people have that's probably what I would say is there was a man that came up to me, young man that came up to me after one of our meetings at Toastmasters, and he said, he wanted to join the club. He said, "I'm impressed by you. I want to speak like you. And will you mentor me?" And I said, "Yes." And I've been working with him. And that's I didn't really expect that, you know.
Yeah.
But that would be another time um of I would say I'm quite grateful for that, you know, and for that feedback.
Mm.
But as you know, Stallone, you could be a great speaker and give a great speech, and you'll still have people that are, you know, people in the audience smirking, this guy, you know, what's he talking about? Whatever, you know, snoring, sleeping, you know. So it helps to keep your feet on the ground whenever you give a speech, whenever you give a
Yeah.
speech in public, because there's always someone that's, you know, not following along or whatever, not happy to hear what you have to say or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question I'd like to find out. You've shared some huge, interesting nuggets, and that is public speaking is connected to leadership. And you have seen that in various facets of your life. When you MC programs, you're able to coordinate. There's a lot that goes on when you learn to communicate
Yes.
and speak in public, because the idea is to connect with people. Like you said, you could actually deliver what you think is an amazing speech and people are not connected. You've experienced a case where you delivered a speech and someone walked up to you and said, "I want to speak like you. Could you mentor me?" That is huge. That's a fabulous
Yeah.
feedback for anyone to get.
Yeah.
But another important feedback you also gave is the fact that the feedback we get from people helps us to stay careful, because you don't think, okay, I'm a star, because there are times you could actually completely go off curve and you are not connecting to your audience. I want to ask you, Ronnie, has there been a time, or could you highlight any particular time in your public speaking career or journey when you probably got on stage to speak and it just maybe did not connect? You probably forgot your line, missed your line, forgot what you wanted to say somehow. And how did you manage such a situation?
You know, it's so funny because I had that literally last Monday. I run I run a Aikido class, and I
Okay.
offered these open sessions. I advertise for people to come along, try it out, and we sometimes get people join the club as a result. So I
Okay.
had offered an open session, and I'll tell you something. And I've done quite a lot of public speaking and Toastmasters and my own events and all this stuff. But at my Aikido club, when a group of new people come along, it's quite intimidating to me. It's
Hmm.
still an anxiety sometimes. And so I was doing the open session, which I'd done a number of them, and I had a basic plan for the class, but I just did not feel like I just didn't get in the flow. I just didn't get in the flow, and I'd started the class, and my confidence wasn't there. I don't know. But I just pushed forward. I just kept going with it, you know. And throughout the whole class, I felt like I'm not quite doing it right here, right? But
Yeah.
the funny thing was, at the end of that class, two people joined immediately, which is
Whoa.
which is rare.
Brilliant.
As you probably know, like out of eight people that come along, two people were signing up, which I was surprised by. A few days later, email, I'm signing up. So three people so far out of the eight people so far. There's still some might come next week, which was unusual for me. That I'd not seen that happen before, that percentage. And it just made me realize sometimes it's not about you. In your head, you might feel like you're not quite doing as well as you thought, doesn't not feeling it, but these are all emotions. And I think a good thing to always to remember is everyone else is having their own experience. They're in their own head, and their perception is different to yours.
Yeah.
So, uh, and I think that was a great lesson for me. And as a musician, I learned a great lesson as a musician when I was younger that I've always held on to, which is I used to go to open mic nights where lots of musicians come together and play their music and stuff. And I would go to these nights, and you go up on stage and you feel like everyone's looking at you, 100 people in a room or whatever, and you're playing your new song, intimidating. And I came off the stage, and I remember going to speak to a friend at one point, and he said something like, "Are you going to play tonight?" And I'd just been up on stage, and I thought, how could he not have noticed that I was playing on the
There.
stage, right?
Yeah.
But it's but that happened many times, and people are just in their own head. They're in their own
Yeah.
conversation. They're talking to the person beside them, whatever. They're not noticing what's going on, and they're thinking about their performance, what they're going to do. And I started to test that by sometimes going up on stage and making up a song on the spot. Not even preparing, not even because I thought it was very important and all that. And then I would just start to mess around with the whole idea. And I would still come off and speak to my friends, and they go, "Oh, that was good." Like they hadn't really been listening, you know.
Yeah.
So uh it's it's these lessons you learn, and you start to realize um, you know, there are some people who would have noticed you and would have watched, but most people are often in their own head, and just to I think to keep going, just get your message across. Don't worry if it's not perfect this time. You know, a guy, I think it can be good to reveal it to the audience sometimes. It depends on the situation, but it
Okay.
can sometimes be good, I think, to say, I'm just not feeling it tonight. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry if I'm not com I'm, I'm not is this making sense? Am I coming across? Sometimes I think it might be good to be open like that. I didn't quite do that on that night, but um, I, I tend to just keep persevering, even when it gets uncomfortable or you can't stop looking at the person that's giving you negative looks or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think that reminds me of what I think it was John Maxwell in one of his books. I think it was the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. I cannot really remember that, but I remember I read somewhere where he said something about when you're on stage and something goes off, if you can say a joke, all right,
yes,
but then saying a joke is a different skill because you're hoping that
yes,
people would laugh. Then you say a joke and then this joke again does not connect. Now
yes,
that's double tragedy for you.
yeah. And that's the thing. I did have a kind of a joke planned to kind of break the tension at the start, and I didn't quite push it through. So you've probably seen me make this joke at the start of the Toastmasters, which is sometimes I'll say, how many people are here to develop public speaking skills? And people put their hands up. How many people here are looking to develop their leadership skills? And people put their hand up. And how many people are just here for the free biscuits? Right? Now, it's
Okay.
not a
Yeah, I
great joke.
remember.
It's not a great joke, but it actually does get a few laughs quite a lot of the
Breaks
time,
the ice.
right? People respond to it. And I tried to make a kind of a similar joke, but didn't quite push it through with as much confidence. So I kind of pushed back. Um, so I think that it can be a bit of a risk, humor. And humor is I think it's best to do something that you know works. And this is why I guess comedians have material that they do over and over again. Like
True.
it is even the best comedians, they don't quite know what's going to work, what's going to come across the right way to say it until they've practiced it a lot. So humor is not my best talent or skill at all with speaking.
Yes. It also brings me, Ronnie, it brings me to this thought where I've shared this a number of times, and I think I also learned it from someone where I learned that when you are delivering a speech, the people you're talking to many times, they are like passengers and you're the driver and you're going somewhere that you, the driver alone knows. They're just driving in the car with you. And
Yes.
then as you're driving at some point, you're supposed to probably make a right turn, but the road goes straight. And then you're supposed to go straight, but you mistakenly make a right turn. Many times the people in the car are not aware that you've made the wrong turn. And unless you tell them, oh, I made the
Yes.
wrong turn,
Yes.
that's when they get to know. But you can just go around the roundabout, come back, and just go straight. And sometimes some people will not notice, like you made a very vital point, which is many times people are just living in their heads. So as a public speaker, you cannot take up the burden of trying to trying to stop yourself because you're thinking about what people are thinking. And when you make a mistake, this illustration I gave or the story I just gave, the key point is when you make a mistake on stage, many times the audience may not know that you've made a mistake because they did not write the outline with you. They did not write the stories with you. They're just there listening. You can find a way to come back and continue the journey.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
many of us, we make that mistake and we're thrown off curve, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great point to make, which is your audience don't really know. And also they are there's a couple of points I want to make that I find so interesting that are big lessons for me. And
Okay.
the first one is we're talking a little bit about maybe negative feedback from the audience or people not, going along with what you're saying. And
Mm,
um, Jim Rohn, the public speaker, the
mm,
famous motivational speaker, Tony Robbins' mentor, you know, he had so many great stories and analogies. And one of his stories was about, he basically said, he talked about Jesus, obviously, and he said Jesus went up on the mount, or I think is the going up on the mount or whatever, and he had a great message, and he's the master teacher. He's the best teacher ever, the biggest audience he's developed, the biggest religion ever. He's the best human ever speaker, speaker, motivator, inspiration, whatever. But he went up and spoke, and it said the report was that a percentage of the audience mocked him, a percentage of the audience were confused, a percentage of the audience, there's a kind of story about how,
Different reactions.
what's that? Yeah. And there was some that followed him. So,
Yes.
and what Jim Rohn's point was, this is the best guy ever. And even he doesn't get everyone on his side. Even he has people who are mocking him, and my mum's quite a big Jim Rohn fan. We always talk about that story. And that pops in my mind when I go up and give speeches and do things.
Mm-hmm.
I see that percentage of the audience, that aren't really going along, aren't enjoying it, are confused. And it's just not, it's totally normal. It's totally normal. It's totally natural. Even the best don't get everyone. So what his point also was you're never going to change those numbers. You should never be concerned with, how do I get everyone to like my message? How do I get everyone to respond to me well? How do I get 100% of the people joining up to the club? You're never going to
Yes.
get that. You're never going to get that. And you should just focus on your goal, and with it, focus on doing enough presentations or inviting enough people that you'll get that percentage that you require or whatever. So it's a really important lesson for people to realize that audiences, for some reason, and you could have the cure to cancer, but the audiences will, human beings, I should say, will delegate themselves into different groups. Some will be your supporters, some will not care, some will actively dislike you. And it doesn't matter what message you have. I think that's quite a natural part of how dynamics work, human dynamics.
Yes.
And public speaking and leadership to me are just so tied in. And I think that what you are doing when you're giving a speech is you're acting as the leader in that situation.
True.
And this is why it's so important with, and not all your audience will be familiar with Toastmasters, I imagine, but we are both familiar with Toastmasters, and there's so much psychology going on and symbolism, the shaking the hands, the different roles that people play. And I find all of that so key and so fascinating to the whole journey of Toastmasters, actually, because when we have the Toastmaster, they are the leader of the meeting that night. They're not just, introducing people. They are the leader. They set the tone of the meeting. We look to them to set the tone of the meeting, the flavor of the meeting. We look to them if something goes wrong. We look to them if things are getting confused. We're looking to their guidance, their leadership, and how they're going to lead that night. And it's very similar to the feeling of going on an adventure, going on a journey. We always talk about the journey of different things. And I think for us as humans, our brains kind of helps us to understand things as a journey, as a almost like a physical, geographical journey. So when someone's giving a speech, you're taking that audience on a journey. And that means you really require a destination. You really require to say to them, here's where we're going. You need to continually be reminding them where we're going, and you need to act as a leader. And it's also fascinating to me. And I've seen failures in leadership in my life where someone maybe had an organization or a group or an audience, and they lost the audience, they lost the group, they lost the role of leader. And I've thought about these things so many times and saw what did they um what did they fail at? What was their failing in leadership? Why did people say, I don't want to follow you. I need to find someone else. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fascinating. And um, I've been thinking about this thing. Sorry, just a small thing, but I'd
Yeah,
love
that's okay.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But I think there are people that they're not fully developed in their leadership skills. And what they are is
Mhm.
a rebel and not a true leader. And I
Okay.
imagine like a rebel who is there are many rebels in life. There are many people saying this isn't right. We need to change things. We need to change
Yes.
this. We need to change that. This is all wrong. Everyone's doing it wrong. And in a sense, they are developing their leadership in that scenario. They are showing they are uh, flexing their leadership potential. A
Okay.
true leader is they're not just saying this is all wrong. They're saying here's the right way. In fact,
Here's a suggestion.
they're not even focusing on let's all focus on what's wrong. They're saying here is the way to go forward. Here is the
Okay.
right way. And you know, so I think some people end up getting stuck at the place of rebelling, of questioning, of but they don't develop into the next level, which is if you want to offer leadership, um you have to show the way.
Good. Now, Rooney, that's a very, very powerful analogy. Don't just point to the problem. Point to say this is the solution. You also mentioned something which I would coin to mean if you have a 5 minute slot to speak for that 5 minutes, you're leading the audience. It could be an audience of 1 million people, it could be an audience of 10,000, 50,000 people, but for that moment, you are leading them. And it comes down to say, developing your public speaking skills and your communication skills is actually tantamount to saying developing your leadership skills. So here would be my question, Ronnie. We've got maybe customer service people, sales people, teachers, lecturers, business leaders in the corporate world who do presentations, and few seconds into the presentations with everything you see on the PowerPoint and everything you're already sleeping. You've got business leaders and all of that. And my question would be, what's your advice when we look at these people I've mentioned? I've just mentioned a couple of so many other people that what would be your advice in terms of developing their public speaking and communication skills? And before you go on, the reason I'm saying this is that many times the message gets lost on the way because someone is not communicating properly. Someone is not scientifically, carrying out the public speaking assignment, as it were. So, what would be your advice?
I think we need to consider what is it we're doing when we are speaking in public. We are, as you're saying, you've used the word communication, and generally what we're trying to communicate is a message. And if we are going to be communicating in front of people, we should have a message. We should have a clear idea of what we're actually trying to say. Public speaking is not the place for you to figure out your message. It's because you're taking up people's time and attention. So
Yeah.
you should figure out your message. And the goal here, and be clear on this, your goal is to try and get that message across to the audience. Now, I think what you're really trying to do is have an influential message. You're trying to influence that audience to go perhaps in a different direction in their life and their thinking. And so generally that is what we're trying to do. So we should be clear, firstly, what I'm trying to do here is I've got this message and I want to influence a proportion of the audience to take my message and consider it, maybe use it in their life, maybe make a change. So firstly, we should develop our message and have an idea of what our message is. And the second thing is we need to take away all the things that prevent our message from coming across. And that's actually what a lot of our public speaking training is, as far as I've come across, is it's taking away all the stuff that prevents that message from having an impact. And when you are in your own head thinking about all the things you're getting wrong, and as we were saying earlier on, you're forgetting about the fact that it's not about you, it's about the audience and the potential for them to be impacted, hopefully in a positive way, by the message that we have. So we have to understand our message, and we have to start taking away all of the things that get in the way of our message coming across. And so these are the aspects of using just simple things, using your voice properly, using the words properly. If you're too quiet, people can't hear it. I was at an event. This frustrates me as a Toastmaster. This kind of stuff frustrates me. But I was at an event a number of years ago, and this lady had arranged for Native American elders from various parts of America and Canada to come over to give some talks and classes with the intention of hoping to help make a better world in certain ways. And she'd arranged this big room. Hundreds of people showed up. It was a very successful. And the Native American elders came in, very long, big room. She'd arranged for microphones, all that kind of stuff. And so they were going to go up to speak. They were offered the microphone. Well, I don't use a microphone. That was the attitude, right? They didn't want to use the microphone. And so, and I was sitting there looking at the back of the room, seeing people that were hard of hearing, literally doing this. Literally, because they could not hear. These people had arranged in their life to come to this event. Someone had arranged to put a room together to promote it, to have a PA system, and the person there speaking decided, no, I don't know why, but decided.
Okay, I was going to ask you.
I don't need a microphone, because some people think that they're loud enough. That room was quite a long room, and it was a struggle for people at the back. So these are such small things that people do, silly things that get in the way of their message impacting the audience. The volume. Make sure that the words you're using, consider that what accent are they used to? What use of words are they used to? If I'm going to speak in America or something, I can't speak as a Glaswegian. Not that I've got a very strong Glaswegian accent, but I've got to be considerate of their ears and how they take it in, because I don't want people to leave going, "What was he saying?" It sounded like a good talk, but I didn't really understand it. And you don't want to give your audience an excuse to not hear your message, right? And then things like physical. People do so many things with their body to get in the way, as we know. So we want to take all that out of the way. We want to take the crutch words, the little tics that we have, the nervousness that comes out. We're trying to get rid of all that so that message that we have comes across, has an impact, and can hopefully have an influence. And for so many people, their message isn't clear. There's so many distractions in the way of the message coming across. They're not taking into consideration their audience. Having an awareness of even the level of understanding of your audience. If I'm speaking in front of 1 million people about public speaking, there's no point. I might not even talk about crutch words, because that's a jargon they don't understand.
True.
So I think that we're trying to get out of the way of the message and realize we are a messenger. We're a messenger. There's a message that, and that audience, someone's there who's looking to hear this message. So don't get in the way. It's
Yeah. Yes, Rooney, sorry to jump in at that point. I wanted to, before we go, and you've mentioned a couple of things. I'm sure that those who are going to see this would be able to see the sense in what you're saying about public speaking. When it comes to public speaking and communication, it's important that people get themselves away from the way, if you understand what I mean, so that the message can go through. So when we think too much of ourselves, we're in the way of the message, and we think too much of ourselves. And you've mentioned things like crutch words. Also, we have pause fillers. We all are guilty at one point or the other. But I'm a very strong proponent of the fact that when you are aware of it, and you make a mistake on the stage by using crutch words, or you begin to use pause fillers, you immediately, the consciousness kicks in. And so you say, no, I think I'm using this too much. I need to retrace my steps. That's the essence of knowing. It's not like anyone is perfect and you never can make that happen. So you've mentioned that. What I'm taking from that is to also get our audience to understand that the way we learn other things, for instance, I want to learn how to, even as important as it is to make my hair, to make hair, or even to cut hair, I'll have to go to a training center. I'll have to get some qualification. People think that people I have met many times that think public speaking, no, I don't need to learn it. I can speak in public. I'm bold. I'm an extrovert. So I don't have any problems speaking in public. But I think it's a mistake. Or what do you think? I know that's an open question,
Oh
but
yeah,
I think
no,
I'm
I
going to
no,
throw it.
I've thought about that as well. You know, the whole thing of I know how to do that. I can speak. I could speak too. You know, I could speak in public, but I've been training myself with public speaking, and I don't know how much you want me to mention the Toastmasters group, but I've been learning so much. Even now, I'm still learning so much. It's from the material that's available there, and the different roles, and it's fascinating to me still, the levels. And we have a I was speaking to our club, the Clyde Club, actually last week, and I was saying I'm interested now in the art of speaking. I can get up on stage and talk.
Yeah.
I can put together a fairly good speech, but I'm interested in the art of speaking now. I want to really make it so all my presentations are just so impactful, so well put together, that I just capture the audience's attention the whole time. To me now, this has become the pursuit of speaking as an art form, just like writing a song, writing a poem, a great speech. I want to put together really great speeches and ideas and messages and be so effective at putting it across. I know that you don't need to do that to be a professional speaker, to be paid to speak. You know, there are many people that are just well known or famous in an industry, and they go up and they speak, they get paid to speak. They're not particularly good speakers, but they can do it, and that's fine. But I want to go back to, why should you develop the skills? Out of, I would suggest, consideration for your audience, consideration
Okay.
for other people. When you're going up on stage to speak, you've got, firstly, you might have an organizer that's put on the event, similar to the situation I'm talking about with the Native Americans who didn't want to use the microphone. You've got an organizer who has went to perhaps great efforts, financial risk perhaps as well, to get people to come along to an event, to be part of something, and you've been asked to speak. And you should respect all that and respect the time and attention of the audience. We all talk about time is the most important asset for many people. It is, and to waste people's time is a very bad thing for your reputation. So if you want to look at it in a selfish way, for your reputation, you want to go up on stage, and when you give that message, you want to have real skill. You want to have skill in doing that so that the audience feels like that was worth my time. I don't agree with him, but he was well prepared, and I respect the fact that he took my time seriously. And I just think empathy and respect for your audience is the reason that you should consider developing more skill, and also because it'll make you more impactful. But the other thing is we don't know what we don't know, and we don't really know the mistakes we're making unless we have other people providing us feedback. So getting training allows us to get critical evaluation where, and we've all probably had these experiences in life where someone tells you something that you didn't realize you were doing wrong, and it was that thing that shifted everything, and you didn't know. And a lot of people don't get training. They think I'll figure it all out myself. Well, that's great, but it might take you 10 years. It might take you 20 years. And you could be 10, 20 years struggling, thinking, why is this not working? Why is this not quite going right? Why are my audiences not listening to me? Why do they seem to not get my message? And so the feedback, the training, there's so many small, tiny, it doesn't take long. Tiny little improvements make huge impacts with speaking.
Yes. All right, Ronnie, we're almost out of time. I'm going to ask you two more questions, and then we're good. But it's been a beautiful conversation. I think I've also seen things from a different light. We learn every day having this conversation with you. Ronnie, let me ask you: do you have any project at the moment, personal or otherwise, you'd like to share with our audience that you are engaged in, and you think you'd love people to know about?
Well, I'm happy to share. If the festival I do is called UK Fruit Fest, and we do have spaces left if there are people interested in going. But it is quite a niche, health and wellness experience. It's a 1 week long festival event with over 100 people, and it's 100% raw vegan diet. It's not for everyone. But it's a great experience, and I'm happy for people to check that out. There's a website and so on, and get in touch if it's of interest. I think obviously Glasgow Toastmasters, the club, I want to represent that and say Toastmasters in general, for people that I'm fascinated that Toastmasters you know isn't a bigger thing than it is. Something it is. It's a big thing, but it's so valuable. And all the clubs I've been around in Glasgow are so cheap. Like, is there no total? To me, it's a complete no-brainer to go along and be part of that. And I understand people might want more of a professional experience or whatever, or one-to-one coaching, but with speaking, we really need an audience, and that's what Toastmasters usually gives us. And my martial arts class, my Aikido class, Aikido at Palace of Art in Glasgow, if anyone wants to check that out, or you know contact me about these things. So I'm a promoter of things. I don't necessarily want to be. I'm not a natural promotional person, but if you become entrepreneurial and create things and do things, you realize this is a big part of it. You have to speak up for yourself. You have to promote yourself. You have to put your best foot forward. And so I'm happy to share all these things.
Awesome. If people want to get across to you, what's the quickest way to get across to you? In case they're interested in, I wrote this down, UK Food Fest, or interested in Toastmasters, or they're interested in your Aikido classes.
Well, I'm Ronnie Smith on Facebook. So hopefully they can find me there. If they want to find me on Facebook, send me a message. But my email address is ronnie.smith84@gmail.com.
Okay. And the Ronnie is spelled Ronnie.
Yes, Ronnie.
Okay, great stuff. Now, Ronnie, here's the last question. If you would have dinner with three outstanding public speakers, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
The very first one, I don't know if you've ever heard of this man, but have you ever heard of Dan Kennedy? Have you ever heard that name?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Dan Kennedy is really a marketing guru, is what he was, in a sense.
Okay.
He had been many things in his life, many entrepreneurial things, but he really became a marketing guru. And when I was starting the festival, had no idea what I was doing. And I also had never really sought any kind of entrepreneurial advice. And I didn't know what marketing was. I honestly didn't know what any of these things were for or what function. Was I'd taken a leap into the complete unknown starting this festival. And the festival was looking like it was going to lose money. And the first time in my life, I was thinking, I need to make some money. I just had the job because everyone else had a job. You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I want to make this amount of money. I want to buy this. I couldn't, I don't care about having a car and a house. I just wasn't that motivated by that. But I got in my position where I'm like, I need to make money. How do I make money? And I started to look at videos about how to make money. And as you go down that track, you find people talking about law of attraction, manifestation. Oh,
True.
that was interesting. But then I came across a video that kept popping up. It was saying the law of attraction, no, wealth attraction for entrepreneurs was the name of the video. And it was this man, Dan Kennedy, and he was totally unlike the other people that were all saying, law of attraction, the universe. He was saying essentially it's a rule. It's not the law of attraction, it's the rule of attraction. And we actually have to make that happen with definite actions and different things. And I started
Yeah.
to get into his materials and books. And it turns out that he was for many years a public speaker, and was on some of the biggest events in the world. Now he's not.
Okay.
Now, if you were to watch him speak, you would immediately say too many ums. He ums and ums all the time, and there's so many things that he's come from a Toastmaster position. He didn't really develop the art and craft of public speaking on a high level,
Okay.
but he um, he was a great he was very good at selling from the stage, which is a part of public speaking that people don't
Yeah.
talk about as much, especially Toastmasters. But because he was good at that, he was always booked as a speaker because he would sell his programs. Um, but he is a fascinating mind when it comes to speaking, the psychology of it, of marketing and the psychology around that. He led me to understand people a little bit more and how to communicate with them, how to communicate. And a lot of that was the written message because he um, was a marketer that often used writing and letters for his purposes. So he's definitely one that I look up to, and not because he's the best speaker, but he has a great message, and he was a great marketing guy. So he's probably been the number one. I love Jim Rohn.
Okay.
You probably and he's one of these universal guys that people he's just the philosophy. This people called him a great business philosopher, and it just he always goes back to principles and philosophies of life and business and human relations, which are never ending. And I think that's actually Dan Kennedy has that as well. They go back to principles. They're not talking about um, use Google to make a PowerPoint or whatever, or you know what I mean. They're not talking about the
Yeah.
technology and the AI and the this and the that. They're talking about they're going back to principles, philosophies that work forever, that regardless of the situation. That's been so important for me understanding these principles and philosophies that are never ending is so important. So, but he's a great mind, a great speaker, a great leader. I would say he was a great example of someone that spoke with leadership and authority. Really comes across
Okay.
with great authority. So those are the first two that come across. And in terms of a third speaker, um, I would have to toss it up because those two are more immediate for me. And my last one, I would have to say, it's a good question. It's a really good it's a really good question. I I'd like to I would probably like to say Ralph C. Smedley.
Okay.
Probably say Ralph C. Smedley, the founder of Toastmasters, because you know I think that he obviously I've never heard him speak, so that it's a completely left field answer.
Yeah.
But he did found probably the biggest speaking organization that's ever existed, and
Mhm.
he created the materials. He created. I mean, I don't think anything he taught was new. I think all these things were understood maybe for thousands of years, but he understood it. He put it together. He brought it together, and he facilitated people in putting these clubs together. And I think that I think that he would be someone that I would love to hear more about.
Have dinner with.
Yeah, yeah, and talk about some of these finer points, some of the because I'm interested in the art form. I don't think
Okay.
Jim Rohn and Dan Kennedy are not the art form of speaking, but I think
Yes.
Ralph C. Smedley would have some great thoughts on the art of speaking.
The art of
I,
speaking.
I would like to give a shout out though because our Toastmasters club, we've got some great speakers in our club, and I'd be happy to have a dinner with some of them, just a few of the core group of the club, and just have a conversation about speaking. I think that
Okay.
could be a fascinating conversation, even within our own, within
Yes.
our own club. It's a great topic. It's a
It's a
fascinating
great one.
topic.
All right, Ronnie, thank you very much. It's been an amazing time with you. And it will go down in history that you were the first person on this platform that we're having this conversation with and trying to change the world in our own way by empowering people and inspiring them to look forward to developing their public speaking and communication skills. Most people do not think it is important. But again and again, we've shown in the course of this conversation that developing your public speaking skills can be said to be equal to developing your leadership skills. And thank you, Rooney, for the thoughts you shared.
Thank you so much, Stallone. It's
All
been
right.
great to meet you, get to know you, and another name that I didn't bring up there, but it's someone that you've kind of introduced me a little bit more to is John Maxwell. And
Yeah,
as I embrace the journey of leadership more, because that becomes more fascinating to me as well, I realize that he is seen by many people as the one of the great exponents and teachers of leadership information, and
true.
certainly I know you're involved with that, and I think that's a fantastic thing and a great a great thing to continue to learn and understand. And leadership, it's such a valuable, great skill, and public speaking is a part of that, and it's it's so vital. We need people to stand up and act as leaders in the world. We need people to
Yes.
be proud to be leaders. And there's, as I said earlier, there's too many people that are rebels. We don't we need rebels, but we really need some of these rebels to become leaders.
Yeah, leader, yeah.
Take the next step, become a leader. Go out. If you're not happy with the way the world is, go and make a difference. If you're
Yes.
saying that, why isn't there this in my town? Why isn't there that? Why don't you go and do it?
True.
Develop your
True.
leadership, and maybe Stallone can help with that.
Let's see where this takes us. Thank you very much, Rini.